half the time what time it is. But now I do because there's a clock and it's 4 o'clock. So we're going to get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Branch Impact Call. I am so excited to be with all of you today. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I was sharing with some of the people who jumped on a little bit early, there's going to be ample opportunity to talk amongst the group today. We're going to use the breakout room feature, which is going to be a lot of fun. And we're also going to have some opportunities for group conversation. So with that being said, I understand if not all of you can use your video feature, but it will make this a lot more friendly and a lot more engaging if you can use your video chat feature. In addition, the chat box is there for a reason. It's why I had you all start out by saying who you are and what division you're in, because I want to get you used to using the chat feature, because there will be opportunities for you to throughout today to use that chat feature to kind of share some quick responses to some of the questions that I'm asking. So I did prepare a PowerPoint for us today just to keep it easier on all of you to follow along, because we are going to be talking about a couple of like basic fundamentals, and it's sometimes easy to see that in writing as opposed to just following along with me. I know I talk fast. It's part of being from the East Coast. So can't really change it. It's just part of me. So I decided to make it easier on all of you and make a PowerPoint. So I apologize. I'm not a fan of PowerPoints because I feel like they can get boring, but just to make things a little easier on you, I thought, why not? So let me go ahead and share my screen with all of you. Get the PowerPoint up. Can you all see the PowerPoint? Yes? Good? Nod your heads. All right, cool. Okay, so today we're talking about leadership in a virtual world. And what's interesting is that, I'll be completely honest with you, when all of this stuff started happening and I started to hear kind of the rumors of us having to move virtually, and now I have no idea when this is going to end, and it's very, very possible that soon enough you'll be in your physical offices. But I will be honest with you when I say that when this all started happening, I was nervous, and I'm sure many of you were too. And I was wondering, how the heck are we going to manage people virtually? I know we have the virtual interview. I know we have the virtual demo. I understand the recruiting aspect and the selling aspect virtually. Like, how are we going to manage people virtually? And so I started to reach out to some of our, trained virtual who've always been virtual. And I started to reach out to some of my colleagues just in the space of digital marketing and network marketing and virtual team management. And I was asking them, like, how do you guys manage your teams virtually? And what I came to find was that it really isn't that different. And you might have been hearing this from your division managers or your region managers, your district managers, that not all that much has changed from a fundamental standpoint. It just looks a little bit different. And sure, it does require maybe some extra attention to detail, but all in all, it doesn't really change the core aspects of management, which trace back to leadership. So while today's message is called Leadership in a Virtual World, I'm going to start out by saying that this message is no different than whether you were running a physical office or a virtual office. We're going to be talking about the fundamentals of leadership. But before we do that, I really want to start out today by sharing some good news. And I'm sure that your division managers are doing a really great job of keeping you in the loop about some of the good news, but I think it's important that we share this anyway. And I'm going to actually encourage you to use the chat feature right now. If you have any hot news, whether it's your own personal hot news that your recruiting is going well, your PR calling is going well, your social media jumpstart is going well, or you know that your district office or your division office is having success right now, I want you to comment that in the group chat. So what are you currently seeing? What is going well? What are you excited about? And what can you share with the entire group here? Now, before we get started, can you guys see, when I just clicked something, can you see on the left-hand side my notes? Yes, okay. Let me go back from that. Okay. All right, so I can't see the chat feature for some reason, but are you guys commenting some good news, or did that fall on deaf ears? I don't see anything coming through. Let's get some good news going through here. And I have some for you all as well. So I reached out to some of the region managers. I asked them, hey, I want to start out the group call with some exciting news. And Scott Dennis got back to me within like 5 minutes. And he said that it is the best recruiting climate that he has ever seen, which is a huge thing for a region manager to say, especially someone who's been in the business as long as Scott has. So I can tell you with full confidence that this is the best recruiting climate that we as a company have ever seen. Now, what does that translate into? Because sure, we can recruit a lot, but does that mean that people are actually buying Cutco? I mean, if you listen to the news, it sounds like everybody has lost their jobs and nobody has disposable income. And how could anybody justify buying knives? Well, here's something really cool. I was looking at the sales report that came out today, and I was looking at this time last year's sales report. Now, you might have already heard these numbers from your division manager and your region manager, but in case you haven't, this time last year, our company, all 6 of our US regions, in total did $440,000 of new business this time last year, in the previous week. Does anybody want to take a guess at what we did this year in new business? What did we do this time in new business? Does anybody have? Just throw out a number here.
2 million.
800,000. So we did $1.1 million in new business. Last year we did 440,000 this time. So what does that say? Well, it says that yes, our recruiting is hot, but so are our sales, and our virtual programs are working. And that is huge. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to know. And it's being proven. So I hope that you hearing that gives you some of the confidence going into this summer, no matter whether or not it's fully virtual or virtual and physical, or who knows. Just have confidence that we are figuring this out and our company is making things happen. Scott also mentioned that some of the keys to success for branch managers entering this virtual space is just to remember to be agile and to be adaptable to new innovations. We have the best of the best in our business working on these new innovations. And so feel free to add to that, but also know that things will shift and move, and that's going to make this time really fun and exciting. And this, I promise you, will be a summer that you remember for the rest of your life. So going back to what we're going to cover today, like I mentioned, we're going to cover the fundamentals of the business, because truly nothing has shifted all that much other than the way that it looks. So there's a couple of key truths here regarding Vector that it's important to just recognize before we dive into the additional truths of management and leadership. The first one being is that Cutco and Vector has always proven time and time again to prevail during economic downturns. You've probably all heard this before, but right after 9/11 and right after the 2008 recession, we had some of the biggest recruiting years, biggest sales years of our company history. We're seeing that this is no different. The second key truth is that we have tested and proven methods of virtual recruiting, selling, and managing. Now, if you were to tell me that this time last year, if I were to hear that we were going to be going fully virtual this upcoming summer, I wouldn't have believed you, but I would have felt confident in knowing that we have managers and systems out there to support that. And now all that's being put to the test, and we're seeing that it's working. And the third key truth is that our ability to impact the lives of others has not changed. I've heard from a couple of branch managers who've called me and they've, expressed some sadness that they're not going to be able to make as big of an impact this summer as they originally hoped because they're now going virtual. And I actually cut them off. And I don't cut people off normally, but I cut them off and I said, listen, that is a perception, that is not reality. In fact, you have a bigger opportunity than you ever had before because of what's currently going on. And you can actually, if like bigger than ever before, you can be a saving grace for people, and you can really show up for people in a time where they need you. It's no longer a want or a desire, it is a need, and people need you, and you're in a really strong position. So like I said, not much has changed, it just looks a little bit different. So today, we're gonna talk about the 3 common laws and levels of leadership. And then you'll also learn a simple equation that will lead to exponential growth if you take it seriously and you apply it. So how do we best prepare for leading a team in this virtual world? That's the big question that we're asking today. How do we do this? And again, we focus on the fundamentals. So before we do that, I want to give us an opportunity to do a little bit of a breakout room activity. And the question that we're going to be exploring in this breakout room is, why is being a leader right now important to you? Again, it's really, this is a time that is unprecedented, and you have the opportunity to show up for people in a way that they are literally on their hands and knees praying for right now. So why is being a leader right now important to you? Why is it important to your territory? Don't forget that you get to show up to your territory and offer jobs, offer opportunities, and then also think about for your future. Trent Booth said this a couple weeks ago on our last call. When you go to your job interviews post-grad and you have on your resume that you ran an office or you ran a business in the summer of 2020, when the economy seemed to be going down the toilet, that person interviewing you is going to be astonished at your resiliency, at your riskiness, which is always a good indicator, especially in business, at your grit, and it's going to be a huge conversation starter. So think about, why is being a leader right now important, not just for you and for your territory, but for your future? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes in breakout rooms. We'll see how many people we have on here to do the breakout rooms. We will do 3 to 4 participants per room. So I'll give you 5 minutes total to get through 3 to 4 people. So that means keep it short, but not so short that it's 10 seconds. So I would say keep it like 1 minute per person. Is all of that clear? Any questions? If so, comment them in the group chat right now. Any questions on that? All right, cool. I'm going to create these rooms. I'll give you 5 minutes on the clock and we'll bring you back in afterwards. I'll comment the question in the Zoom group chat too, so you have that to reference. So 1, 2, 3, and opening the room. So go ahead and join that room. Bryson, are you able to join a breakout room here? Brandon, I'm not sure if you're just jumping on a little bit late, but we have everybody in breakout rooms right now.
Okay.
I will add you to one, so just kind of jump in there. The question, I'll post it again in the group chat. That way you have access to it.
Okay.
So give me 1 second. I'm going to add you to a room here. Assign to breakout room 2. There you go. It should be prompting you to join.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Hey, Madeline. Everyone is in a breakout room right now. So I can add you to a breakout room.
Did I get the right time?
Well, it starts at 4, so 4 Eastern time.
Okay, I'm
so
on Mountain Time, so I.
Okay, so everyone's in a breakout room right now. So I'm gonna add you to one just to kind of get part of that. And the question that everyone's answering is, why is being a leader right now important to you, important to your territory, and important for your future? Okay.
Okay.
All right, give me 1 second to add you to a room here. All right, you should have a little pop-up inviting you to that room.
Okay.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
We're back.
We're back. I realized for some reason when I asked for the hot news, my chat box was not going off, and so I thought nobody was sharing hot news. And then once you guys, the breakout rooms, it started to alert, and I'm like, oh, people were sharing, and now. All right, we'll let everybody come back here. I know breakout room 2 and 5 are making their way back in here. I'm excited to hear some quick takeaways before we dive into the content of today. So once all breakout rooms are back, we'll send people on to share. Okay, welcome back, everybody. What I would like to do now is give 3 people the opportunity to share something that they heard in their breakout room. It could be something that they shared personally or something that somebody else shared. So I learned this from Trent Booth. Use your jazz hands and I will unmute you. All right, Kennedy, let's hear.
I think a big thing, and I'm sure other people have this experience as well, but it's focusing on the relationships. So while a sales goal and a silver cup would be freaking awesome, I think the main thing is focusing on the relationships you're building, especially in a time where you're so isolated, and so many people are as well. You're giving that human connection and building a relationship in a time where it's so much more needed now.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make, and one that, Kiki, I'll get to you in a minute here. One that I want to quickly emphasize on is we're so accustomed to just being around people naturally and like getting energy from just proximity, right? But when all of a sudden that's taken away from us, we start to realize how much we actually value human connection. And what's so special about vector marketing, and I'm sure many of you experienced this in your first couple of months on the job, is that the managers we have here are really good at connecting with people. I mean, we're really good at asking questions and helping people with their goals and helping people dream bigger. And that right now is going to be so addicting to people who have been missing out on that the last couple of months. So recognize that above all else, I mean, you have the opportunity to give them, you have the pay to give them, you have the experience to give them, but really you have the human connection to give them, which it's not something that we normally talk about because it's, you know, you could go to your friend's house and get the human connection there, but now that you can't, we have a gift to give people. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Kiki, what did you hear in your group?
Something that I heard from both the guys that I was grouped with was just learning how to be leaders. One is he's in ROTC and he's going to he's going to be in the military when he graduates, and he wants to be able to lead in that way. The same type of people who lead in branch. And then the other one is he had like a tougher childhood and stuff like that, and he wants to bring the responsibility that he learned as he grew up and build it into his people and into his like territory and stuff like that. So something that I found is like the fact that like right now, especially right now where it's like remote and that's how the world's going to be as more time goes on, is learning how to like connect and lead and better other people's lives, especially now that we can do it all over the country instead of just our small little areas. So that's
yeah, absolutely. That's a great point too. I think I saw one more person do little jazz hands. Who was that wanted to share? Let's get, I can't see everybody. Anyone else wanting to share? Let's get one more volunteer here. And I will, okay, Joshua, hello. Oh,
there you go. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Joshua. I'm a former district manager, and I thought that's unusual, so I'd share that.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I stepped away from the Vector to work with my dad for a couple of years, and he's retiring now. I got to be a dream manager, kind of life coach for older people instead of younger people, which was fun. And then it happened. Jamison Jones called me up during this COVID-19 thing and said, "Hey, what are you doing this summer? You want to run a virtual branch?" So that's
awesome.
So that's what I'm doing, and I'm so excited. I gotta say, I've been I don't know. I've had a few challenging days watching my kids and my wife and all that stuff, but since we made the decision. But oh my goodness, super excited and rejuvenated, and I'm excited to impact people in a great way, as well as be able to share some of that excitement and get, I don't know, dust off the sample kit, as they say, right? Something like that. So, and
well,
Shelby, by the way, I checked while you were talking earlier, we're friends on Facebook. So
oh, cool. Well, that's good to know.
So yeah, it was. I was like, do I know Shelby? Should I be saying hi? And I don't know. We've apparently met or something. But either way,
I mean, Facebook's a funny place.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, welcome back. And that is, I love what Reese just said to you in the chat. It is amazing to see that, you know, you're coming back with all of this experience and this knowledge to come to impact people's lives. And it goes to show the gift that we have to give, especially during this time. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. And let's go ahead and move on to the content portion of today's message. I'm going to go back to my screen share here. All right. Okay. So can you all see that? We good? Yep. Okay. Okay. So like I said, we're going to cover the 3 common laws and levels of leadership, many of which you've probably heard before. And I would love to give people the opportunity in the chat box. What do you think the first level of leadership is? You've probably heard this term if you're a John Maxwell reader. What is that first level of leadership? See anything in the chat box? I have no idea if the chat box is actually working because I didn't see that last time. Let's see here. Okay, I see. First impression, Reese, you were on the call with me this past week. I ran a call for Brett Wiggins' group, and Reese was on it, so he already knows the answer. But the first level of leadership, he's right. It's through position and title. So the reason why we're sharing this today is because I so often have branches come to me and say, Shelby, I'm really nervous about not being able to maintain leadership within my organization because people are going to think I'm too young, or they're not going to think that I am experienced enough to be a leader. And the reason why I included this in here is because maybe that feeling feels even bigger now that we're virtual, but I want to encourage you to not allow yourself to think that way, because the first level of leadership, now there are 5 levels, but the first level of leadership is leadership by title and or position. So my question for you is, how does this apply to you as a branch manager when you're thinking about that feeling of fear that people aren't going to take you seriously or they're not going to listen to you? When you hear the first level of leadership and you hear that technically you're a leader by title and or position, how does that apply to you as a branch manager? What does that mean to you as a branch manager? Go ahead and comment 1 or 2 thoughts in the chat box here. So Reese, I know you already know the answer, so you can go ahead and give it away, but I would love to see somebody take a guess at what this might mean. And if somebody wants to raise their hand and speak up, go ahead and do that as well. But what might this first level of leadership mean for you as a branch manager? Experience compared to a new rep. Okay, cool. Be an example. Cool. These are all great responses. The automatic, yes, Brendan, that was exactly what I was looking for. So what does this mean? Well, this means that respect should naturally come with your authority level, but the big thing that you have to remember is that it doesn't mean it stays. So I want you to feel comfortable knowing that by you having the title of branch manager, for the most part, you will automatically get that respect from the start. So it's important to recognize that you can lead people to believe that you don't think you deserve the respect if you act out of fear, but if you remember that by title and by your position, you should be getting respect from the start, that can sometimes ease that feeling of like, oh my gosh, are they going to take me seriously? Now, the second half of that is it doesn't mean it stays. So with that being said, it's important that you continuously work on becoming the best version of yourself and also being the best leader to your people. People are always watching you, and they're watching how you show up, and they're watching how you lead. And so if you begin to do things that could be considered disrespectful, well, you'll lose that leadership title, even though you still have the manager title. So that is the first fundamental, and it's important to remember that. But with all of that, we have to talk about the law of the lid as well, because the law of the lid is something that kind of ties into that first level of leadership in the sense that, you know, you do lead by position, but at the same time, if you don't lead yourself, what tends to happen? Some of you might know what the law of the lid is, but it ties into this. It's this idea that it's the belief that people buy into their leader before they buy into the opportunity. So if you're not growing yourself, and if you're not acting out of a place of integrity and authenticity, and that you know what you're doing, then people could tend to kind of fade out. You've probably heard the idea before that, you know, a leader, however much you develop yourself is how much you're able to develop others. So when you think about your ability to lead, it's important to remember that the more you lead yourself and the more you grow yourself, the more your team can grow as well. So John Maxwell says here that the leadership ability is always the lid on a personal and organizational effectiveness. If a person's leadership is strong, the organization's lid is high. But if it's not, then the organization is limited. So again, going back to that first level where you have the position, then it's your duty with that position to actually grow yourself into a leader. And what I love so much about Vector is the fact that we are always encouraging you to read books on leadership and to ask your leaders about how you can do better. And you have this group of branches to support one another that you can also lean on as well to ask, hey, how are you doing that? Or how are you motivating your team? And I want to encourage you to use this group to your best ability to raise that lid up higher. So again, going back to the question I asked before, how can this help you as a branch? How can this idea of the law of the lid really help you as a branch? Well, I think it's important to remember that the better you can lead and develop yourself, the better you can lead and develop others. So here's a quick group share opportunity. Thinking about self-leadership. So again, you know, this idea of the law of the lid, the more you can lead yourself, what are some things that you can do now or that you have been doing that have allowed you to grow your own self-leadership or have allowed you to get better with your own self-care, AKA have allowed you to raise your lid on your organization? I know some of you might be thinking, well, I don't have an organization yet, but again, the more you can grow yourself as a leader, the bigger potential that you have within your organization. So I would love some volunteers here. I'll stop the share for a second. Who has something that they've been doing? I know Alejandro. AJ, go ahead.
Sure. So I guess a couple of weeks ago, I actually gave a speech about this at our team meeting. Basically just I've been able to really organize my schedule and just kind of everything at home to make sure I'm still doing everything, but also just the positivity and everything there too. And so I kind of passed that on by giving a speech at our team meeting, just a motivating speech to kind of, you know, again, really help realize. I actually used some tips from you, Shelby, about overcoming overwhelm from one of our past calls. So I basically kind of repurposed that, put it into my speech, and kind of tried to pass that on to not only give a little bit of motivation and positivity for the transition, but also really focus on, hey, get your schedule together, realize that we have a lot more resources than we think we do, and just kind of passing that on. But I've really been able to kind of organize my home kind of work lifestyle and stuff.
Yeah, well, I really love what you just said about kind of sharing other ideas and tips with your team, because it shows that you are taking on that role of being that lighthouse for others and saying, hey, we got this. Like, here are some things to think about. And that right there, that will naturally raise your ability to lead when you take those risks and you take those jumps and you put yourself out in front and say, hey, we got this. I'm going to help lead. I'm going to help guide. I'm going to help be the light for you. So I love that. Who else has been doing some work in terms of self-leadership? Katarina, let's hear it.
So, and mine kind of goes with what AJ said, but just putting in systems so that I'm just more organized in my life. So I started reading in the morning. Whenever I wake up, the first thing I usually do is check my phone, but now instead I read, it's right here because I'm in my bedroom right now. But it's called the Daily Stoic, and it's just like a great quote for every single day, just to kind of get my mind started in the right place. And then I started exercising, just eating right, just to make sure that I feel good so that I can help make other people feel good.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned a couple different things. One, the fact that you have a morning routine and you stay away from your cell phone the first thing in the morning. I know I'm guilty of doing that for sure, but to get in a habit where you're feeding your brain and feeding it with something that's positive and can really get your gears moving is super awesome. And then also just to hear that you're making time for yourself as well is so valuable, especially in this world that we're living in where we're constantly kind of sitting in one space looking at a laptop. Now more than ever, it's important that we're giving ourselves the time to get outside, to go for a walk where we can. Of course, take your necessary precautions, but do the things that fill up your cup, because we're not getting that same amount of energy from the human-to-human contact as we normally would. So sometimes you have to manufacture that energy, and I love that you're getting in the habit of doing that. Let's get one more share here. What have you been working on? Thomas, go ahead.
All right, sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I've honestly just been like focusing on like kind of honing my skills. Just because obviously being at home all the time, we have a lot more free time. So like I've been really good with like keeping on my schedule, my planner and stuff. Like I still make time for like me to just watch TV or watch a movie or something, but I'm more focused on like getting more work done throughout the day since I have the time. And I'm like, Katerina, I want to remember her name. Katerina said, it's like, so I exercise in the morning too. And it's really just about like getting your day started right. I noticed the days that I wake up and just go on my phone right away, I'm kind of like, I'm not necessarily fully negative, but I'm just not in like the right mindset the whole day. And I get distracted a lot easier. So one thing I started doing, I don't read a quote, but actually, so I'll wake up, I'll take a shower real quick, and then I'll read for 30 minutes
Nice.
to start my day off. And I'm actually reading, I'm also in my room, so I have my book. This is actually one that Gina gave me.
Cool.
But it's a book on leadership. I wanted to start that before I open up to kind of get a better understanding of like the word itself as opposed to just doing it. But I've just been like stepping up a lot more in my office and like helping with a lot more of the daily functions and stuff too.
So let me ask you a question about this. You just said stepping up. So how have you felt your own personal confidence, conviction, and abilities grow through doing these certain things?
Well, obviously, like even things that we tell new reps, like the more you do it, the more confident you're going to get with it. So I have like my office shifts because I'm an assistant manager. So I run interviews Saturdays and Thursdays. But I've been running a couple extra ones on an extra day. I've been going to like all 3 days of training, even though I'm only on for 2. And just like little things like that. I'm not doing like a bunch more, but I'm just adding a bunch of little things here and there to start focusing on more that I want to get better at, to be able to actually, do that effectively.
Good. And I'm sure what you're going to notice is that you have you're not adding more plates, but you're widening your plate in the sense
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're creating more opportunities for you to lead, and what that will again do, what that will materialize into when you do open up your office is a larger capacity to lead others and to make a big difference because you're taking those steps now. So that ties back into the law of the lid. That's why we're asking this question to begin with. So thank you for sharing. Kennedy, I know that you raised your hand as well, so we'll go to you and then we'll move on here.
All right, just kind of to reiterate some of the things that were already said. I've been reading a lot. I think the biggest thing for me, again, is a morning routine. I read Hal Elrod's book, Miracle Morning. So that obviously just sets up, if you could read any book, read that. It's the best thing in the world. But I actually just finished Miracle Equation, and I think that was a huge thing for mindset. And going into this, like, yeah, we're going to hit challenges, but keeping the mindset of unwavering faith, extraordinary effort, we can make our own miracles no matter the negative situation we're in.
Yeah, cool. The Miracle Equation is a great book, and I definitely agree with you on that. And I think it's really opportune right now to talk about how we can be miracle workers for a lot of people. So thanks for sharing. All right, we're going to go back to the PowerPoint here. Okay, so the third law that we're going to be talking about, it's not actually the third law, it's actually the first law. So just to reiterate, we talked about the first level of leadership, we talked about the law of the lid, and now we're going to talk about the first law of leadership. And the first law of leadership is kind of similar to the law of the lid, but it has less about you as the manager in terms of what your abilities are. It has more about the way that you act as a manager. So the law of the lid is what you're doing for yourself to grow yourself, so therefore that you can grow your team. The first law of leadership is how you act and show up as a manager so that your team feels comfortable in following you. So what this means is that if you don't believe the messenger, you won't believe the message. So how does this show up for you as the messenger? So what does this mean for you as the messenger? I'd love to get 1 or 2 thoughts here in the chat box. What does this mean for you as the messenger? For some reason, my chat is not, I just gave the answer away. Anyways, my chat's not working, so I don't know what you guys are saying. But what it really means is that credibility and personal integrity are paramount. So to reiterate back what I said in the beginning about the first level of leadership, where you naturally gain respect by your position, how you lose it is not acting out of a place of integrity and not being credible. So that's why the first level and the first law really act together, because the better you can understand the first law, the quicker you can get to the second level. So I'll say that one more time. The first law and the first level act in tandem, because the first level, you could easily lose that respect, but if you follow the first law, you won't, and you'll move quicker to the second level of leadership. So I want to teach you a quick equation. I know Reese knows this equation. Anybody else that was on Brett's call this past week knows this equation, but I have found this equation to be so critical in building any type of community, in building any type of influence, and really emphasizing and growing myself as a leader. I learned this equation from Adam Stock, who I know many of you know. He's the founder and owner of Rising Stock. But this equation is called the trust equation. And why we're talking about this right now is to emphasize, again, that first law of leadership and how to really build credibility and personal integrity. So the trust equation, T equals C plus I plus R over SO. So who would like to take a guess at what might C be? Dang it, I gave it away again. I keep clicking buttons to get the chat and I give away the answer. So C is credibility. And what credibility means is what you say. It's the words that are coming out of your mouth. So how does that materialize as a manager and as the messenger? How does that come across as the message? Well, when you are credible, your people, your team, your reps can say, I can trust what he or she says about insert here. So again, credibility comes back to the words that you say and that your people can trust what you're saying. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you want to, this is what I always say, under-deliver, over-promise. You don't want to over-deliver, under-promise. You don't want to promise that someone's going to hit their first promotion, their first weekend. You want to show them the steps so that they can understand that you are a credible source. Show them the steps and remind them, if you follow these steps, you should hit your first promotion. But if you jack someone up and be like, yeah, dude, you're totally going to hit your first promotion. I don't care if you do 1 demo or 5 demos, you're going to hit your first promotion. Well, then that person, if they don't, that credibility begins to falter. It's the same thing if you tell your reps if you're going to be somewhere at a certain time and you're late. Maybe once is okay, you hit traffic, but doing it over and over again, it begins to diminish your credibility. So how do you enhance that? Well, thinking about credibility, it's important that you talk about past successes so that they know they can trust what you have to say because you've been there before. It's why we always encourage having training stop by, so that way they can see that you're surrounding yourself with people who know what they're doing. That way, if you don't have the answer, you can at least get the answer for them from somebody else in your circle. It's important that your people know that you've done this before so that way they can trust that what you're saying is true. All right, what is I? I wish I could figure out how this chat feature is working. I don't know why it doesn't work. But what is I? Take a quick minute to guess. And I'm not sure if any of you got it because most people don't. I know that I didn't when I first was guessing about this, but I is actually intimacy. So how does this relate to trust? Now, I'm not talking about physical intimacy. I'm talking about emotional intimacy. It's creating that emotional connection. If you think about the people in your life, those that you have a deeper emotional connection with are the ones you trust more. They're the ones you would call first. They're the ones that you would lean on if you were going through tough times. So as a manager, as a leader, it is your duty to create emotional intimacy with your reps. Now, I tread lightly when I use the word intimacy because obviously we know that there is a line you do not cross, but let's talk about emotional connection. Emotional connection creates this feeling amongst your reps that they feel comfortable discussing things with you. And so I think about the best leaders, they create this atmosphere of no question's a bad question. You can be open with me. You can share with me. Let's be transparent with each other. And they hold space for people. And they don't judge people. And that's a really important point to make too, that the quickest way to limit your emotional intimacy, your emotional connection is to judge others or to make them feel bad about what they say or what they do. There's a really good quote that is, be hard on actions, not on people. So when it comes to emotional connections, you have to recognize you have a human in front of you, and it is your duty to create a connection with them from a place of compassion and from a place of emotional intelligence. So how do you enhance the emotional intimacy? Well, the first step is listening. Again, the people that you're dealing with the most in this role are young high school and college students. And more often than not, they don't feel like they're listened to by their parents, by their friends, by their boyfriends or girlfriends. So if you can be the person that really, truly listens to them, that separates you and that creates an environment where they really feel comfortable. Undivided attention. Again, same thing with this particular demographic. I mean, we have our phones in our face 24/7. So it's rare for people to get undivided attention. And if you can be the person that does that, they will stick around far longer than anybody else. Vulnerability and transparency. These are also two components that are really important when creating an emotional connection, because it shows the other person that you are open and you are willing to talk things out. And again, creating a safe space, like I mentioned before. All right, what is R? So R is reliability. And reliability comes down to the action. So it kind of is tied into credibility. So again, if you say you're going to be somewhere and you don't back it up with your actions, that's where your trust really falls short. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like that your people can say, I can trust them. I know if they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. You come through for your people. You don't overpromise and underdeliver, going back to the credibility aspect. So how do you enhance this? You continuously show up. Again, you underpromise, you overdeliver, you act from a place of honesty and integrity. And we might be wondering, well, why am I going through this all? Like, of course, yes, it ties to leadership, but why is trust so important? I think trust is so important right now because of the virtual landscape that we're in. It's more difficult to create a really deep connection with somebody virtually at first. Once you've gotten over the initial hump, it's almost the same as in person. But that first hump is establishing trust with people. And in physical offices, think about when you first started, you were kind of feeling out your manager when you first started. You were wondering, like, do I like this person? Can I follow this person? Do I trust this person? And it might have been easier for you to make up your mind on trust when you were physically in the same space. Proximity is power to an extent. So the reason why I'm really focusing on trust with all of you is because when you can really break it down to simple actions and simple ways of being, you get to cross that initial hump a lot quicker. And therefore you get to the point where you're really creating a solid team because everybody trusts you, because you're credible, you can create an emotional connection, and you're reliable. Now, what is the denominator? The denominator is an interesting part of this trust equation because it has the ability to throw everything off. And that's why it's the denominator. So the denominator is self-orientation, which it comes down to motives. So here's what I mean by this. You might be credible, you might create a good emotion or good emotional connection with people, and you might be reliable. But if you're doing that to serve yourself, that will diminish trust so quickly. And this is why I always teach the branches that I coach this concept of CPO goggles. Are you looking at your reps through CPO goggles where you're just seeing dollar signs above their heads, or are you looking at them as real humans with real needs, real motivations, real goals? And when you can get to the point where you're looking at your people for exactly who they are, which is human beings that are looking to gain experience, looking to have a good experience, looking to make money and grow themselves, that's when you can really focus on your motives on your people. And the way that our compensation plan is created to begin with is to satisfy that model. the more you grow your people, the more you grow your own income. And that's what's so great about this, is that you are motivated to really work with your people. But if you're just doing it for the money and you're looking at every person that comes into your Zoom interview as a dollar sign, well, that's when your motive is off, and that's when trust becomes really difficult to build. So what does that mean? What does having good motives mean? It means that your people can say, I trust what they say and I trust that they care about me. You want your people to know that they care about you. I want you to think about your DVM right now. I'm sure, I would say probably 75 to 80% of you without a doubt would be like, yeah, my DVM would run through a brick wall for me. And you want to be that same person for your people. So how do you enhance this? Well, you've heard this before, be off self and on others. Being curious before critical is a major key. I think about, times when I get texts from people and I immediately go into criticism mode. And I'm like, nope. Let me ask some clarifying questions, because it's really important to just get everything on a basic level of like, what are they saying and what do they mean, and not make assumptions. Assumptions can be the quickest way to become critical. And assumptions are usually false. So to get away from assuming, just clarify. And then, of course, giving grace is always really valuable, because humans by nature make mistakes. And it's really important to recognize that when you're bringing people onto your team, they're brand new. And so where you might be like, of course I'm going to show up to this, of course I'm going to do this, of course I'm going to call in, they might not get to that point for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So giving them grace is a valuable attribute or a valuable skill set to have. And it's really important that your team knows you give them grace. Now, does that mean that you let them step all over you? No, there's a balance. But you do recognize that they're human beings and they make mistakes and they need some time to grow and to evolve and to transform. So that right there is the trust equation. Like I said, this equation for me has created massive results in my life, and it's broken down this idea of trust into very simple concepts. So I would love to give everybody the opportunity now just to do a couple of quick shares. So let's get some jazz hands here. What are you hearing? What are you noticing? What was a big takeaway either from the trust equation itself or anything else that we've shared so far?
I feel like for me, over promising and under delivering, was one of my biggest weaknesses going into last summer whenever I ran a branch. Just reason being is, I thought I was gonna have the best summer ever, like something that's never been seen before in the company. And then I had these, huge aspirations and huge goals. And then, I really did not, follow through with that. And a lot of my reps, just thought I was, BSing them with all this. And then they just didn't see the full value that this job could bring them. So I feel like that's a huge thing that, in really every aspect of the business and life should be, implemented.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I do want to actually stick on that point for a minute here, Will, because there is a component of talking big, right? Like there is a benefit to sharing big dreams. So I'm never suggesting that you don't share what's possible with your team, but you make sure that they understand what it takes to get there. So that way they don't just assume it's going to be rainbows and butterflies the entire way, and therefore they're just along for the ride. They know that they play an integral part in making what you're describing happen. And therefore that's where your ability to under promise and over deliver lies. Like, hey guys, I'm going to let you know that we've got big goals as a team. We're going after this thing called the Silver Cup. I know it might not mean a lot to you right now, but I'll be talking about it all summer. But it cannot happen unless we buckle down and we do the work. And I can let you know that when it does happen, it's going to be pretty sweet, but it won't happen unless we do the work. So let's buckle down and focus on the actions as opposed to all the benefits that might come with being a nationally recognized team. Does that make sense? What else are you hearing or recognizing from the truth equation or the trust equation or anything else that we've been talking about so far today? Reese, go ahead.
So it really stuck out to me when you asked, would your DVM run through a brick wall for you? Brett Wiggins would no doubt do that for any of his people. And just like the idea that we need to be doing that for our own people and not looking at our reps and our team through CPO goggles. We need to have the right motives so that trust is high.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Let's get one more share here. One more share. Alex, go ahead.
Cool. So I really like the self-oriented part of it because it got me thinking, like my DM Adam, obviously it's like he started the goal, like, oh, he wants to hit 1 million for his office, right? But to me, it's crazy how like tied in the team actually is into that. So it's not like, oh, Adam wants to hit it. He probably just wants to make money off us. It's like, oh, he's really trying to get this. Like, I want to help him get there. And I guess that's kind of a really good thing to have. And that's kind of what I guess makes it be more impactful on your side, I guess is what I want to say. I don't know.
Yeah, no, well, so it's a good point that you're bringing up, Alex, because it is important as a manager that you are driving the team towards something. So you are driving the team towards a mission, a goal, a target, but you're team oriented. It's not about you and your own personal glory or your own personal paycheck. It's about the team accomplishing something together. So sure, would your reps maybe think like, oh, well, Shelby wants to hit this goal, we're going to hit it with her? Maybe, but they're excited because of the way that I've described it. They're like, yeah, heck yeah, we're going after this. Like, yeah, our team is the best. Like, we're going to do this. It's not like, oh, I'm just showing up because Shelby needs to buy a new car. So there's a difference between self-orientation and team orientation. And when you're team oriented, that's when you can like gather your team around the goal and be like, yeah, let's run after it. And that's probably what your DM has done really, really well. Thank you for sharing. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint here, and then we're going to wrap up. We're actually right on time, which is pretty awesome. It normally doesn't happen that way. So the last thing that I just wanted to encourage you to ask is how can I be the best leader in my territory? Again, going back to what we shared today, we talked about the 3 basic fundamentals of leadership. Number 1 is that you naturally get leadership, or you naturally get respect by your title, but you don't keep it. And it's important that you have to continuously work on yourself in the process, on growing yourself, raising the lid in your organization by the work that you do on yourself, but then also making sure that you are building trust within your team. Again, that first level of leadership to really create an organization that works together, can believe in you and your vision, and can be open and ready to be managed and to be grown and to be led. So the question that you should be asking yourself is, how can I be the best leader in my territory? What are the things I can do right now to raise my lid, to increase my ability to be respected, and then to also just be trusted? So that is really the baseline of the question you should be asking yourself. And with all that to be said, I'd love to open it up to questions, but other than that, we're done. We're good. We got through the full PowerPoint here, but I would love to open it up to questions and answers if there's anything you want me to go back on so you can take a picture of or get some more notes on. So any questions, thoughts, comments, takeaways? I can also stare at you all, which is a lot of fun too. AJ?
I am curious, just because what is the second level of leadership that all this is supposed to lead to?
It's a great question. I honestly forget, but you can find it if you look up the book, The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Okay, thank you.
That's a little bit of homework for you.
So on the same thing, if I can jump in.
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
Totally reminds me, and I can't see myself, so I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but it's John Maxwell CD's The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, which I find funny that it's also the revised edition, because if they're irrefutable, how are they revised? But but it is something that I bought, I don't know when, it's probably 10 or 15 years old, but it makes me want to go listen to it again. So 210 minutes on 3 audio CDs, and there you go. So,
Yeah.
it goes over some of this. I'm sure more detail, right? But lots of good stuff. It's
Thank you for sharing that. That's a great book. So you can get it on audiobook. You can get it on well, I don't think you can get it on CDs anymore because you don't even listen to CDs. But you can get it on audiobook. You can buy it on Amazon. That's a really great book. Also, the 5 levels of leadership as well. While you raise your hands.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think today's topics that we covered are important in general, but especially important just where we are. So thank you for covering that, because I know it definitely helped me. It's going to help mindset, and I'm sure it helped a lot of other people on the call.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Kiki?
So going a little bit back to the trust equation, do you know any, like, some good books to be reading for doing, like, this self-orientation, like being off yourself? Because it's something that I need to work on. I know I need to. So I'd love some guidance from some experts.
Sure. Well, let me first acknowledge the fact that it to an extent, it's very natural for us to be selfish. It's a defense mechanism. It keeps us safe, and we're thinking about ourselves. And I see this really often in young branch managers. And it's a big shift to go from what's going to satisfy me and my goals to how can I help others. And oftentimes when I talk to senior branches, they will say, you know, Shelby, I really didn't understand what it meant to be off self and on others. And I'm so excited about going senior branch to do that. And I know I felt that way too. Will, I see your face, you're nodding, so you probably felt that way as well. I know he's a senior branch on the call. But to answer your question, Kiki, a really, really, really good book is called The Go-Giver. It's a short, easy read, and it's the 5 laws of stratospheric success that talk all about how to focus on others to reach that level of success. So I'd recommend reading it. You can read it in probably 2 days because it's such a quick read and it's a really great story. So yeah, that answers your question, I think.
Well, and it's The Go-Givers?
The Go-Giver, yep. I can post it in the Facebook group too. Any other questions? Will?
For everyone on this call, I just think it's just important to remember, if you're anything like me, you're in college, you're taking online classes, and, yet you're trying to get your business, everything going, from the ground up. And, I feel like it's, really important just to remember that, self-care is gotta be critical, part of that. Last summer, one of my biggest mistakes was I was working 100 hours a week. And then that was common for me all summer. I got burnt out at the end of the summer, and I didn't ship anything personally, like in the fall. But, it's just, you got to have some self-care in that. And I feel like, because we have to bring our A game, and we're going to change more lives than we ever have. And you're going to have more people in TLA than you ever thought was manageable. And, just probably my favorite thing about being a branch manager was hearing, William, you changed my life. And, I got to hear that a few times. And for you new branch managers, you new managers, you're going to get that opportunity. It's great, but it has to start with yourself first, just getting plenty of sleep and making sure that you have the energy to power through the day. So basically, yeah, I just think that, energy management just has to be there, has to be part of your daily life.
Thank you for bringing it up, because that's such an important point to make. And it's one that I think we often underestimate, because when we're feeling good, everything feels good. But it's when we start to feel bad that we start to shortcut and we start to make poor decisions and we start to limit not only ourselves, but the people around us. Like, think about a moment, probably in maybe recently, when you were really exhausted. And ask yourself, what were your conversations like when you were really exhausted? How did you respond to your friends and your family? Were you more short-fused? And when you realize that things like sleep are so valuable, you understand that if you want to be the best manager for your people, you have to take care of yourself first. Because when you neglect yourself, when you eat poorly, you neglect physical exercise, you neglect sleep, you neglect water, your body begins to react in a way that can often take over your mind, and all of a sudden you snap. Or you say something you didn't mean. Or you overpromise and you underdeliver. And so, Will, I really appreciate you bringing that up because it's such an important point to make and one that most first-year branch managers do not take seriously.
And Shelby, I know that you mention it on every single call, but I just feel like it has to be mentioned again. Because like you said, really, first year, don't take it seriously. Recruiting becomes addictive. So.
And especially the summer when the recruiting climate is so hot, but that's why we turn ourselves off. Like there needs to be a point, and I would work with your DVM to figure out what point that is for you, but you turn yourself off. And I was talking to somebody, a branch or maybe a district. I think it was a district. Oh yeah, I was talking to Anthony Hayes. He was a district manager out in California. And he was saying that, he's learned to turn his cell phone off at a certain time and just trust that none of his reps that need him past 9 p.m., unless maybe it's like a 10 or 20K fast starter, none of his reps are going to fall off a cliff if they don't talk to him after 9 p.m. But he knows for himself, he needs to be resting and be refueled for the next day so that he can show up for his people when they really need him the most. No problem, AJ. See you later. Any questions, guys? I can stay on here for however long. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Cool. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate all of you. And I do want to mention this one last thing since everybody kind of stayed on a little bit longer for today's message. I'm really excited for each and every one of you going branch this summer. Part of me wants to dust off my sample kit like Josh is doing and get out there too. You've got a really amazing opportunity in front of you. And I know it feels a little bit different than maybe what you originally anticipated it would be. But I'm telling you, this is going to be a summer you will never forget. And the lives that you will change this summer because of what you are offering. These will be people who are in your life forever. Like you will have people who you're the reason why they get to go back to school next year. You're the reason why their electricity doesn't turn off at night. Like you are the reason why they build the resume that they've always dreamed of. And that's not to be taken lightly. So I'm really proud of all of you for making this decision. And I'm so excited to work with you in the coming weeks, in the coming months. And I will see you all later on. Bye, guys.